Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with two of my podcasting brothers, Brandon from the Animation Destination and Ricky from the Spoiler Force podcast, to talk all things Attack on Titan series finale. If you've been putting it off or you're watching it currently, this is your warning. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. I want to give a special shout out to a couple of our patrons that help make this podcast possible. Bill, Brent, Patrick, and Jacob. Thank you all so much for your support. It means a lot. If you want to become a patron and help support this show, check the show notes and sign up today. Now let's get on to my chat with Brandon and Ricky. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's My Head Podcast. I'm your host, Julian, and today I'm joined by Ricky. Ricky, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Oh, fantastic. We're joined by Brandon. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hello, how you doing?
Oh, I am doing great, man. We are going to talk, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk Attack on Titan series finale. This one's been out for a couple weeks now, or maybe even a couple months now at this point. But nonetheless, the series is finished. Before we dive into it, if you guys haven't yet, you guys got to go check out Brandon's breakdown of the series finale of Attack on Titan. It is phenomenal. And go and check out anything Ricky does because he is a thought-provoking podcast. Man, the Spoiler Force podcast and the Animation Destination. I love, like I told you guys before we hit record, I love when you guys break down stuff because you make me feel so dumb in the best possible way because you guys look at stuff so uniquely and so cool when you break it down. But nonetheless, Attack on Titan series finale. Ricky, we'll start with you. What was your initial thought seeing this series come to an end?
It was really like to be honest, I was very sad. I didn't want this series to end. From watching it way back in 2013, 2014. I caught this on the tail end when season 1 finished, but then from then on, just watching the show, reading the manga, it was hard to let this one go. I've never had a show or even an anime pull me into the story or into the lore, and I was one of those people that waited the 5 years for season 2. That's how dedicated I was, so to see this go, I was just damn, man, it's just closing the book that you're reading, and it's just that's it, that they're done. No more, so it was very, very heartbreaking, but I'm glad that they finished it, and I'm glad that they did it the way that they did. But yeah, it was fantastic.
All right, Brandon, same question to you, man. What were your thoughts?
I had massive anticipation because I had read the manga. It's one of the few that I read the manga prior to the anime. I don't typically do that, but I started reading this manga before the anime ever came out. So I was sort of anticipating all this stuff. I was utterly pissed off at the way that they released this thing. I thought it was infuriating to call it the final season and split that off into 5 separate parts. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. But it was some. Despite all of that, despite all of my misgivings about that, when it finally hit, when those last episodes finally hit, I was sucked in. It was oh yeah, okay. There were even parts to this thing that oh, is that seems anime only, and then I went back and read the manga. No, that was in the manga, and I just completely forgot about it. So, but yeah, it was so well done, and there were a few small changes to it that I think worked out for the better in a few ways, because apparently people didn't like the ending of this manga. I don't know why. A lot of people didn't, at least. I thought it was great. I loved this story. I thought it was awesome, and it was great to see it finally finish off. It was great.
I'll echo the same sentiment for the fans that know. I mean, they heard it during our Klaus versus Nightmare versus Elm Street, or Nightmare. I was about to say on Elm Street, but Nightmare Before Christmas episode we did for Christmas. And I was upset with Larry that Larry banged out an entire episode or an entire series of My Hero. And all I had to do was do one episode of Attack on Titan. And it took me 6 months to actually get around to it. And like you were saying, Ricky, as soon as I got into it, boom, I was hook, line, and sinker. This show was phenomenal right out the gate. I know there's some criticism. I think, what was it, for season 2? It was very weird. It's making you feel for characters that weren't really there in the first season. It's this not time jump in a sense, but it's showing you this other piece of the story that was going on, that was running concurrently with the main story. But all in all, I love the entire series right off the bat. I'm so glad I watched this one. You're wearing a Cowboy Bebop t-shirt. That's probably my favorite anime of all time. That's probably the one I rank everything against. But boy, oh boy, Attack on Titan, I'm lost for words when I start to think about it, especially that final episode. So Ricky, you want to give a synopsis real quick on what we saw for this final episode, and then we'll break it down from that point.
So are we talking like the both specials, right?
No, no, just the last episode, just
Just
the
the last.
last
Okay,
episode.
just
Yeah.
okay. So pretty much, just them stopping Aaron, stopping the rumbling. I
Hmm.
love where it picks right off, from the last first half where it goes right into fighting. No super dialogue or anything like that. It just goes right into it. And yeah, Mappa killed it, man. Like I know that Mappa's like pushing out their workers to make these animations, but oh my god, dude, they killed this like opening sequence of just seeing like you see the crew jump out of the plane. They're fighting the Titans, and it's just pretty much the Armin and Mikasa and the crew just stopping Eren, trying to stop the rumbling and just trying to save the world, man. It's the way I don't want to go like dive too deep into because it's gonna end the whole thing right away. So I want to slowly get into it, but it's no, it's been phenomenal. I loved seeing the fight scenes. Reading the manga, you only see like the highlights in the panels. So to see that Mappa like just animate every single moment of like even when Levi was fighting, it was just so good, and I had goosebumps the whole time. And I felt like a little kid again watching Dragon Ball Z. I was like, yes, like let's go.
Yes, I get to you, Brandon, in just a second. But there was one thing because you brought it up, and we'll talk about it when it comes up. But I do want to mention I wanted to see Levi go straight Professor X and fight in a wheelchair, man. They alluded to him being in a wheelchair, and I have not read the manga yet. I'm the guy that reads everything after I see it because I want to be surprised with the show because I watched the show with my son, and I made the mistake, or I didn't make the mistake. Hayden made the mistake of watching or reading all the My Hero books, and then we're watching the previous season when Lemillion comes on, and then Hayden's over there. Ricky, I told you the story when we were talking on the bear, but Hayden was getting a drink from the refrigerator, right? So I'm like, oh shit, because you see the cape for Lemillion go by, and then Hayden comes running, and he's like, what happened? And I was like, dude, I think he's back. And he was like, who? And Lemillion pops up like 2 seconds later, and I was like, bro, he's like, yeah, Dad, I've read all of this, and I was like, this is why nobody likes kids. This is exactly why nobody likes having kids because your lack of joy kills my joy, you know. But nonetheless, man, like I said, I wanted to see Levi fight in that wheelchair. I'm kind of glad he didn't because I'm pretty sure it would have been bummy. But yes, the opening sequence was phenomenal. The fact that they jumped right in, you don't really see very often. They got to give you at least 15 minutes worth of dialogue before they do anything, 15 minutes worth of recap. But I love how they handled this episode right out the gate. They knew the fans were hungry for the finale of this series, and they didn't waste any time getting to it. Brandon, when that initial fight takes off, man, what are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are you feeling when you're watching it?
Yeah, it's just like, again, this is the ultimate, finale. They're taking on every Titan in existence. Everything just starts popping up. You see all the beast Titans, you see all the past female Titans, all the past attack Titans. They're popping up and fighting them all. And just like my cat here, just strolling right by. But yeah, and again, like there's a certain amount of anticipation for certain spots. I really loved how they did Falco's transformation, that they didn't even show it. It just sort of like happened off screen after they talked about it for a little bit. That made so much sense because it would kind of bog down if you're doing this final hurrah type of thing. You can't just like go over and have like a whole heartfelt meltdown over Falco turning into a new beast Titan. It's like into a new bestial style Titan. I thought they did a better job explaining about how he turned into a flying Titan in this than the manga did. It was very like kind of like yeah, he's a flying Titan now. Oh, okay, cool. And I also loved, this is something I noticed way later on after everything was done, is the fact that all of Falco's stages were stages of a bird. Like his first Titan stage, when he's like the pure Titan, he's like all like baby, he looks like a baby bird. Like it's like kind of like his neck's all long and he's like, ah, and he looks like a baby bird. And it looks even more so if you read the manga panel, like he looks like it's very baby bird like. And I thought that was pretty brilliant because then he gets the jaws and he has the giant jaw beak and stuff, and it's very cool the way they did that. That his evolutions all kind of went through that stuff. And then I was waiting to see what they would do with the whole like, because they showed on the trailer where Mikasa like has like the giant wings or whatever,
Mhm.
and I
I
was
love
like,
that shot too.
it's a great shot, and it's just like I like, and it comes out of nowhere. They don't even explain Falco prior to that shot, so people watching are like, did Mikasa just grow wings? What is happening? So it was that I thought that was really awesome. So yeah, it was great. It was so cool.
One more time. What does a baby bird look like? Can you do that face again?
It's like got a long neck. He's like,
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're tuning into
right?
the YouTube portion of this one so you can see
Yeah.
Brandon imitate Falco Baby Bird. Um, so I figure what we can do instead of breaking down the entire episode, because ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go watch this episode. I cried so many times at this episode. I can't imagine not only the intent, the anticipation, the just the build up for the people that have been with the show like as long as you guys were. Because I just checked in, the year, 2 years prior, whatever it was. Whenever I started watching My Hero, so shit, man, 2001 is when I checked in, and it's been a hell of a ride.
2021.
2021, excuse me. Yes, thank you. 2021 is when I checked in. 2021 felt like a lot like 2001, I guess. But
It does.
it, it was, I was so satisfied. I was so connected to it. So I can only imagine what you two guys felt and so many fans felt. So, ladies and gentlemen, please go watch this episode before you listen to this. So I figure what we can do, like I said, we'll pick out a couple moments. Hopefully you guys will have differing moments, and if not, just pick out something. We'll talk about them in depth, I guess. But let's start with Ricky, man. What was like your top moment in this episode?
Oh man, top moment. Honestly, I'm very biased. So like anything that had Levi in it,
Mm,
any Levi scene, and then Reiner. Reiner was a big one for me
yes.
because I think for myself I relate to Reiner a lot when I read the manga. As much as I love Aaron and say like, oh man, I would do what Aaron did. I think the character I related to the most throughout this whole series was Reiner, because you see that this guy's like, he doesn't want to do what he wants to do, but he does it out of duty. And then
Hmm.
like he does it so much out of duty that his mind snaps. And so like at the end, you see this guy who was looked at as a villain in the beginning, doing heroic things in the finale, and
Yeah.
the guy who wanted to die never died. He was alive this whole time, all the way up until where he fought the that essence of life or whatever. Even up till that point, he was just still fighting. And I think what Reiner has done in this show was like incredibly redeemable. Like you can hate him, but then like you can't deny his actions at all. Like he
Mm.
was down for the fight the whole time.
What
Yeah.
about you, Brandon? What's your
Uh,
favorite moment?
Well, Ricky is correct. Reiner is the best character.
Oh
100%.
wow.
Yeah, best character through the whole thing. This show does a phenomenal job of switching roles on you and making you root for characters that you previously hated or previously loved. Reiner switches. He switches from heel babyface so many times in this.
Yeah.
He's like the Big Show. It's insane. Like it, but you love every minute of it, and that is one of the best moments is when he stops the parasite from moving, and it's not going anywhere. It's one of my favorites ever. Another big one, I guess, are we doing fight scenes or the whole episode? Because like
Whatever you
obviously
thought, because
uh,
I've got two moments
it
in this episode. So whatever your
you,
best moment or your favorite moment is.
you talk about moments that make you cry. It's Sasha, when Sasha shows up at
Yeah,
the end. It's like one of my
that
favorite
hurt.
shots in the manga. It's one they did it beautifully in the anime. Just Connie and Jean seeing her through the steam, and it all just kind of made sense because here's this thing that's like the prelude of life or whatever. It's just
Mhm.
this weird amalgam of life and yeast, and I don't know. It's weird. And it just it displays Sasha for like a second just for them to see, and I think that's great that this canonical ghost like kind of is there just to give you one last goodbye. And Sasha's the best, like other than Reiner, but yeah, second best character I would say. So that's a big one for me.
I
I
wanted to add
think
on to
you
that as well.
go ahead.
I was sorry. I wanted to add on to that because I love that, at the end they got to see the ghosts of the people who passed, and I
Mhm.
think that that's great for the viewers too. Like that's kind of like closure for us
Mhm.
to see everyone who's died, who's
Yeah,
sacrificed their life in the show. So
yeah,
yeah, that, and then with
yeah,
Levi seeing his crew. Oh my
yeah,
God,
yeah.
heartbreaking.
And Levi finally killing the beast. That's one of my favorites. I love that part because for all the stuff that they do a great job of like making you feel for these characters for each one. For some reason, I don't give a shit about Zeke. I don't care. And I'm glad he died. And I'm glad Levi got to kill him. That's I don't know. Like I just like he's like the one that I'm just like, nope, can't make me feel sorry for him. Don't care. Like it just something about it. He was just arrogant. I don't know what it was. So
That
yeah.
was so I have two favorite scenes. And
Mhm.
when you guys said Reiner, I really feel like you mispronounced Levi because he is the greatest character in the series. He is just such a like
I'm
the
not going to
first
begrudge that take. That's a perfectly fine take.
oh,
It's
100%. You know
he's
what I mean?
awesome.
It's like it's so hard to say like one character is better than the other because it's just whoever you
Mhm.
connect with, right?
Right.
And each character in this series, I don't think you could go like, oh man, I don't think I could argue away like why that character's so special to you because they
Mhm.
gave every character so much life and then they gave every character every payoff you thought they could get, whether they died,
Yeah.
leading up to the final fight or, so everybody's story was wrapped up beautifully. But that scene where Zeke just comes out and you think he's like high or drunk and he's like, hey, oh, it's Levi, and then Levi, there's nothing fucking said, it's just and then he's gone and I'm like, dude, he did it. Like Levi,
That
like I really hope they
oh.
don't kill him off now, but Levi, he did it, you know what
Yep.
I mean? And
Yep, on
the
site.
the on
Third
site,
attempt.
bro. He
Third
pulled
attempt.
up. Third time's a charm, baby.
Oh.
He said, "Drop me the Addy," and then he dropped him the Addy, and then he took him out, man. And that other part, and I don't know if this really counts, so you guys can tell me if it does, but I think one of the most beautiful shots in this entire series was that rolling credit sequence where
Mhm.
it's the end. That's like I got goosebumps now thinking about it. I'm really trying not to like be all teary-eyed this early into the episode. But
Mhm.
it's like that whole sequence where Mikasa's coming and then like you see the world just changing and everything Aaron said was going to happen happened even after the extinction of the Titans. And then they leave you that little glimmer of hope. Was like, well, do they come back if they go down that rabbit hole? They pulled a whole Alice in Wonderland type of thing, follow you down into this
Mhm.
tree trunk, follow you down into this world, see if it really comes back. And is it a
Yeah.
world where Titans can come back? You know what I mean? So those two moments throughout the entire episode stick out to me. I'm pretty sure they're like once we start talking a little bit more in depth about some of these scenes, something else might come up. But those two, like just thinking about it, and I've only watched it twice because I'm so afraid to watch it a third time. Because at that point, I'm like, I'm gonna start picking out things that I just did not like, which I don't think there's anything I did not like in this. I wish it was like 2 hours longer, if we're being honest, just because I wanted more, and I'd much rather them leave us wanting more than like, dude, come on, you guys gotta wrap this shit up, man. I got work tomorrow, type of thing, man. So with those couple of scenes that we discussed, man, we talked a little Levi, we talked a little Reiner. Was there any characters that you thought didn't really get a payoff? And we'll start with you this time, Brandon. But do you think there was any characters in the series that wrapped up that didn't, get that payoff?
Historia.
Yeah.
It's a shame because like she doesn't really have a spot there, which so it makes sense. Like where the story put her, they couldn't really put her into the story as it finished. And
Mm.
I feel like he maybe was trying to justify putting her in, but I think there should have been something a little more significant about the diplomacy afterwards with her. I would have liked a scene with her, but then everything's already finished. Aaron's dead. Like it's all wrapped up. You don't need to have another big moment for somebody else who wasn't there at the final conflict. I don't think. It's just more of a wrap up sort of thing. But she had her moment, and she doesn't have to like be a breeding ground for her children, so that it's a happy ending. It's good. But just something to where like Historia got to see Ymir one more time, or just something that some reason she could have been there with everybody. I don't know what that would be, but it just you couldn't work her into that situation. I think it would have been nice if she left the island with them, and she got to be like one of the people there, like she snuck away or something. It was a shame that she kind of had to be there with her kids, and maybe she was pregnant at the time. I can't even remember,
Mhm.
but she definitely couldn't be in the final battle, and it was a bit of a shame that she didn't get to have like one last hurrah in the last season because she was such a big part of season 3. She was huge. Like granted, her story was done, but like there's more you can tell, and you can have that little bit of closure. So that was a shame. But other than that, I think everybody else was wrapped up pretty beautifully. Yeah.
What about you, Ricky? Anything stick out glaring to you that could have went a little deeper?
Uh, Aside from what Brandon said, not really. I mean, like if I'm just nitpicking, I would want to say like maybe the other countries that were involved in this conflict. Like I would love to have them like touch up on like Onya Capone or like
Onion Capone,
or,
yeah.
like the
More of him.
like the Asian countries, like how they kind of like weren't really didn't really want to be involved, but they were also helping already too. So like maybe some sort of closure there to see if they worked with the island of parody or not. But they didn't even really touch up on that because they're like right away they're like, okay, so Aaron wipes out the majority of the planet and everyone's
Right.
gonna turn on us. So there was really no closure on like to see if they really had allies or not. So I would have liked to see that aspect of it, but just for our core characters, no, not really.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they mention the Osmobito like after the ship goes down?
So.
I can't remember. I don't think they remember.
They just said like they were just waiting for the rumbling to end.
Yeah.
They
So
just
it's
sat
like,
there,
yeah, it's like they just kind of like it was kind of like in boats, and it's like, all right, we never go back to them again. I don't know. So
Yeah, like I said, I think like I said, this is why I think you two are some of the most best. That's not right. Best boys. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You guys are
best is
so
right.
good. Best is right. You guys are some of the best people when it comes to your breakdowns because you guys will sit there, like I said before we record. I just watch it and I wish I had that muscle in my brain where I could be like, oh, I see what they did there. I see what they're leading up to. Because I could look at it a little bit deeper. Because whenever I hear you guys talk about it, I go back and I rewatch it. And I'm like, how did I miss that the first time? You know what I
You
mean?
you you say that, but I wish I could turn it off a lot of the time.
Weed
Like
helps a
I
lot, Brandon.
I maybe I just need to get high and watch some more stuff more like that. I always look at something and I'm just like, because like animation's hard. Like animation is
Mhm.
a very difficult medium. So like when you put something on, you feel like everything being done is very deliberate. Now, obviously, this is a adaptation from a manga, so it's a bit different than that. But like even doing like a page in a manga, like manga creators are very like they're very artistically driven, like, and editors are very much like every page has to mean something for an editor,
Mhm.
for like in these companies, for like even shonen, it's like every page has to mean something. You can't just have something that's like divulging information. What you want to do is have something that's divulging information and also showing you something else, even if it's just thematic to what's going on. So I'm always looking for that stuff. And sometimes like plot lines sail over my head because I'm looking at trying to look for the theme. It's like, or I missed a cool thing that one of the characters did because I'm thinking about like, oh, what did that rose mean in the foreground? Like probably nothing. It was a pretty rose that they put there because it looked cool. Like, what? Shut up, watch the scene. I don't know.
Yeah, I blame reading the manga and watching the anime a lot, like because I got really obsessive with this show. So I was like going back and rewatching seasons 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then going back and rereading the manga to see what I missed. So I got really obsessive with it. So very much like Brandon, I was like, man, what is this? Is this symbolism here or something like that, or something in the dialogue that they said that are they like foreshadowing something? So that kind of sucks when you're trying to enjoy a show, you just can't watch it for fun. Like I'm dissecting even now, like I'll watch movies, and I'm like dissecting the scene. I'm like, something's gonna happen here. So
there again, I do get a joy out of that though too, to kind of be like, it's like, oh, what did they mean by this? Where did this want to take them, and why did they choose to do that? Trying to figure that stuff is also kind of fun. So I need to do more video essays. I never have the motivation to edit them. But yeah, it's a bit of a blessing and curse, I guess. I don't know, to stare at stuff like that.
Like I said, man, try an edible and then just see what you can do when you're watching. Like I said, I come up with sometimes really good ideas and then a lot of times really bad ideas when the THC and the edibles kick in. So it might be 50-50 for you. You might be able to enjoy it a little bit more and still have that little analytical curiosity to really delve deep into what they're showing you or what they think or what you think they're trying to show you. Um,
Mhm.
Now, with this episode, man, you remember the runtime on this one, Brandon? Was it an hour and a half or was it a little
I
bit shorter?
I think it's an hour 20, hour 30, something like that. Yeah, somewhere around there.
This, so they did in an hour and a half what Game of Thrones final season couldn't do in 7 episodes or whatever it was. Like when they announced that they had one more episode, I was like, "There's no way. There is no way. Like they're gonna come in and then they're gonna Game of Thrones." Now, personally, I liked the last season. I didn't think it was great, but I still thought it was cool. There was a lot of cool elements. Like if I'm watching something, I was like, oh man, that's really cool. Like I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? I don't have that much investment into a lot of things. You know, they could fuck up some things here and there, but it's just like, oh man, there's a couple cool moments. As long as I'm happy and I'm, entertained for 2 hours, whatever it was, I'm pretty good. I don't get too angry. But within when they said, like I said, 90 minutes or hour and a half, whatever it was, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's so much on the table. Like they haven't even started fighting Aaron yet. That's going to be a huge portion. And then when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big of a time chunk in that whole final episode. I mean, what, probably
Hmm.
30 minutes tops, from start to finish, but there's so much shit in between there. Him going within the Titans or whatever that universe is considered, and then just these flash forwards and these flashbacks, but it's happening simultaneously to what's going on. You know, there was a lot of ways that they could have not stuck the landing, but man, I'm so impressed that they did this in an hour and a half. Now, is there anything with you guys reading the manga? Is there anything that they left out that might have been like super pertinent in here? Do you think they nailed it all the way through?
Uh, if anything, I like that they did change up some things, like the dialogue. There's certain things that, like, I guess Armin said to I can't recall exactly word for word, but there's some things he said to Aaron in the paths that they switched up, so I like that they kind of
Yeah.
like Isayama and the Mappa team, they switched it up to make it make more sense.
Yeah.
And then like the ending, they even Isayama himself said it, like I believe it was on Twitter or Instagram. He was like, just watch it, even if you guys didn't like the manga ending, just watch it for the anime ending. And
What was the
I like what they
difference?
well, there was two initially. The original ending was just them like going to the island, and then that was it. Like they were done, And then like it ends at the tree where Mikasa gets the scarf wrapped around her by the bird, and
Mhm.
then he draws out like additional pages to where that's where you see like the credits roll up, like the war and then the kid going into to the tree. But like the anime ending, there was just like certain still shots they kind of like snuck in there that
Yeah.
wasn't even in the manga, So that's
Mhm.
what I really like with Mikasa being buried, and then like you see her like
Mhm.
under the tree with her scarf still. Like I love like those little
Yeah.
still shots like that. But
Yes.
yeah, I that's what I enjoyed the most. Like they didn't change it completely, but they still added new elements to this ending to make it more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a line that they changed up when when Armin thanks Aaron for taking the hit, like becoming the villain essentially. And in the manga it was loosely translated to thank you for committing genocide for us, which is not a great line. So they
No.
switched that up to be more like we both did, we'll both, we'll deal with it together, and we'll both go to hell together if it has to be. We're brothers. And that was just much more like, yeah, that makes more sense. Like, yeah, it's like they it tied into the whole idea that like the through this, like the whole innocence claim is like kind of moot for everybody involved. Everybody did these horrible things in complete defense of what they believed was correct and what was right. And it's um when you start measuring, because like let's face it, Armin set off nukes around people like several times. So, and so like, yeah, he didn't genocide 80% of the world, but when you start like measuring, on that level, it's just like at what point is it just, like at what point are these two souls similar? You know what I mean? So it hit a lot better in the anime conversation, I think, than in the manga. So that was really nice. Um, yeah.
they played a lot in the gray area that wasn't really black and white, you know.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I want to finish the manga so I can have a little bit more of a leg to stand on. I mean, I've already seen the series, so I feel like I've, you know, kind of come and went with everything that they could probably tell me. You guys said there's a couple tweaks here and there, but just being a completist and being that comic book guy, it's like you got to have every issue, man. You got to have every trade, you know. So I got to go and finish this just so I can have peace of mind. Um,
Mhm.
when this is a two-parter, man. So you know you delve deep into this one on your show, Brandon, already a couple weeks ago. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, go and check out Animation Destination, their Attack on Titan series finale. Um, I'm going to ask you both this question, even though I know your answer already, Brandon. Was Aaron right? Now, I remember Ricky when I first started watching this show. I think I threw either we talked in Facebook Messenger or we talked on a podcast before we hit record, like we usually do. And I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure. And I was only like season one or season two into it, but you already see that initial flip in Aaron. And I go, dude, Aaron's Adolf Hitler. He's going to commit. He might be the greatest villain of all time type of thing. And I was like, is he a villain? And both I asked that question to you and Larry was like, well, one, you got to watch the show, and two, I don't really think he's a villain. But Larry hadn't finished the show either, like most people, and he doesn't read the mangas. So the question I'm going to ask, man, not so much was Aaron right, but was Aaron the villain in the story? We'll start with you, Ricky.
Okay, so I honestly think it's hard to say both, but I want to say he's both because we're seeing it in his perspective of the show.
Hmm.
So you know, him being the protagonist of the show makes him ideally the good guy. But his actions at the end don't justify that he is the good guy. He does what he has to do to destroy the world and save his family. So he's very much anti-hero esque, you know.
Hmm.
But is he like a villain? I don't think so. I don't think he is. But of course, you know, when you have other people who read the manga or watch the show have other opinions about Aaron, do I agree with what he did? Not really, but you know, to be realistic, I would do the exact same thing too. Like if I was
Yeah.
in Aaron's shoes and like, you know, the world around me is already messed up and all I care about is the people that I love and I want to save, I'll do whatever I can to destroy. I'll destroy the world if I have to save my loved ones. And
Yeah.
that's where I kind of like, I guess compromise with Aaron, or like not compromise, but where I kind of like, you know, I'm more lenient on him about that
Hmm.
because honestly, I'm just being realistic. Because anyone who says like, oh no, he's wrong, this is this, like you guys are liars because you guys, if
Yeah.
the same thing happened to you guys would be just like Aaron.
Absolutely. What about you, Brandon?
Um, Here's the thing. I think within his viewpoint, there was not much else he could have done. Because again, he had to save everybody that was around him. I can't justify genocide, though. I have to sit with Hanji on that one. Don't
Yeah.
justify genocide to me. It was such a good line, and it's like yeah, like it. The thing is, I'll get with Aaron, and then I'll talk about the moral quandary that people kind of have with this one. So with Aaron, I think the correct answer would have been to, you know, basically stall and possibly create a peace while holding that power on Paradise Island. That would require Historia to sacrifice her life to her children, and it's just a wretched kind of, you know, thing. It's a sacrifice that she was willing to make, and he didn't let her make that. He erased her memory of that conversation in order to, because, you know, to basically make that decision for her, because he wasn't about to let it happen. The only thing that I think Aaron was correct about was that he saw that this was where the nukes get taken off the table. This is where the Titans die. That's the only way that this goes away, is if the Titans are off the table and there's a level playing field for everybody. He's basically, again, he's taking the nukes out, is basically his whole viewpoint. Again, it's that it does a beautiful job of hammering these things down to a human soul, a person, what they want and where they go in these situations. You know, like Aaron didn't have to do that if the Marlians just didn't persecute against Paradise Island, but they wouldn't persecute them if the Eldians weren't persecuting in ancient times. And it's these cycles that they're so brilliant with, like he's so brilliant at like understanding these cycles that we we see today. Like to this day, you know, we see those things throughout our history too. So it's not like this is like some unconnectable situation, apart from giant, you know, baby naked monsters rising up. But you know, it's you know, again, it's just like it's just nukes. That's essentially the nuke that we're talking about here, and he took that off the playing field. That's, I think, the best argument for his viewpoint is that he basically is in a situation of being destined of doing this. Like he even creates it himself, where he turns Dina towards his house, you know, through the time stream, you know, like that's he basically creates himself through this whole thing. It's like this cycle that has to happen because this thing has to keep the life going, and this is the way to stop it, is if everyone against him has their freedom to take his life. So you know, it's he's not right for the genocide, but from the context of like knowing that this is going to end what's to come, and possibly what's later to come. He even says that, you know, fighting's never going to end, but for a time there was a long time of peace, you know, like there were, you know, that wasn't like a short trip through time at the end. There was a long strip of time where we got to the bombings or whatever. So you know, and there's just no telling like how that affects people beyond him. Where the morals are in this show, the moral circle in this show is Gabby and Sasha's family. That's where the actual morality lives. It's not even in the main characters. It's get out of the forest. That's literally the true moral answer through this whole thing. And of course, from a Japanese production, it's from the country folk, because they love making the country folk the end all be all morality. But yeah, it's get out of the forest. Sasha, like Gabby, is the microcosm of how to get out of it. She was an indoctrinated child that believed that she was a devil, but she was going to use her ability to end her line of devils, essentially. And then she realized that it's just people. There's not any devils around. It's just, and that's the core of the morality of that. And people seem to miss that. They seem to think that it's about like, oh, was Aaron correct, or was Historia correct? And the correct is Sasha's dad and Gabby. They're the correct ones. So follow that. Get out of the forest. Stop killing each other. Stop holding grudges. Stop being Hatfields and McCoys about it. You know,
people are so obsessed of getting mad at Gabby. That's why they missed that point. Everyone hates Gabby.
Everyone hates Gabby, and she's like the best. She's like the best microcosm of the whole show. It's so good, and they hate her. And it's just like, you guys missed it. You missed the point. And it's because she killed Sasha, and it sucks. Yeah. I know, but that was such a big deal that man.
It takes her doing that to realize like,
yeah,
what the action that I took for like vengeance.
Right.
Didn't do anything. It just made more vengeance. And then like she, you know, when she saves the girl that Sasha saved, you know, she realizes like, oh man, you know, like, they're not bad people. Like they're helping me. And then
that's the way to go. Yeah. That's the big moment of the series for me is Gabby saving her, and like she looks up and sees Sasha in her. It's just like, there you go, boom, you did it. Like that's what a cycle.
That initial moment where, you know, when you're talking about get out of the forest, and, you know, there's three things that come to mind, not only when I'm watching this last episode, but these last couple episodes, but when you're talking in particular, man, two quotes and then one movie reference. So I guess it's kind of a quote too. But an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. That's what her dad was preaching right there. Stop holding these grudges. And then with Aaron, no matter which way he went, he was holding a double-edged sword. So he was either going to cut himself or he was going to cut somebody else. Somehow he kind of figured out a way to not so much do it 50-50, because what was it? You said 80%? I'm pretty 80%. Sure that's what they said. 80% of the world was taken out, you know, and it's that's a lot of people, man. And then the third one, you know, when you were breaking it down, was, I think it was it Endgame or Civil War, when Tony Stark's nukes and his missiles were landing where Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were, and he was like, we were trapped under that rubble, right? Ricky, you were actually talking about the reference I'm making. we were trapped under that rubble, waiting for that bomb to go off, and all we saw was your name. And I'm paraphrasing, not because it's been so many years since I've seen this scene, but how many villains did Tony Stark make by bombing that city? Whether he was bombing it or not, his name was all over those missiles. His face was all over those missiles. So he did kill 80% of the people, but he united the people. The friend of my friend is my enemy, or the enemy, or however that phrase goes, right? He gave everybody a person to hate, a villain to hate, a villain to blame, where he did take the Titan powers away from everybody, but he also gave, I don't want to say, oh man, what's the word where you get overlooked for a sentence. What's the word I'm looking for there, Brandon? I'm pretty sure you know it. They can pardon you, pardon you. They pardoned, Armin and all of the other Titans because Aaron was the guy that made that final decision to kill everybody. Yes, they're all Titans, but Aaron decided to kill everybody. So they took that Titan power. I don't know if they explained too much in the manga, if anything ever happened to them, any repercussions after to all the Titans that were previously there that did not pass away. But he, like I said, he took that finality out of everybody else's hands, and he made that decision himself. Like you said, can't go along with genocide, man. It's a fucked up thing. I mean, it's been tried in real life, not even 80 years ago, and it was a terrible fucking thing then. And seeing an anime and just drawing so many correlations to real world, like you said, taking the nukes off of the table on a consistent basis. We're wondering if we're going to get bombed by this side of the country or this side of the world. We're going to get bombed by that side of the world. So how they played into that and so many fears of so many people, I just thought it was just beautifully executed. Now, the second part to that question that I was asking before, like we laid all that groundwork for Aaron. Do you think there was a way for him to come out of this and not do what he did? Do you think there was any way for him to step back and walk back whatever he was about to do?
No, no,
No.
he's already made his decision. And Aaron throughout the whole show has always been like a hasty, rash person.
Hmm.
He never really thinks things through. It wasn't until he got his powers like awakened that he started like planning everything out. So he was already like going through each scenario, and he's already made up his mind. And that's why, like, what I wanted to add on to what Brandon said, like what Hanji was talking to him about that. He didn't even care anymore. He ignored what Hanji said. Like he wants to just save his friends, and that's it. Like he doesn't care. He didn't care about the rest of humanity. Even like when he saw that little kid, he was crying, but like, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," but
Yeah.
that still didn't change his ideas. He still didn't stop.
That was
So,
so tough to watch. That was so
yeah.
tough to watch. Like I think that would have cracked me. Like I don't know how what how, and you see how cold and callous that Aaron, or not Aaron, excuse me, that he was, but it was just like just watching that scene and then that not wanting to change his mind, just seeing that kid. It was one of the most grotesque scenes I saw in this anime. It was just that kid, just his head whole blowing up and bulging. I'm just like, fuck, dude, that would have changed any opinion I had right there about whatever I was doing, man. But Brandon, what about you? Do you think there was any way for Aaron to take a step back and change course, or do you think he was destined to do this?
No, 100% destined. In fact, he was a conundrum that I think the author really wanted to make, and that's a guy who's a slave to freedom. Which is a great line. But even like it's pretty much hinted that this is just destiny for him, like in like every cause. When he's a baby, Gresha says to him, "You're free," and that's the that's like the one
The
thing, like he
spark.
understood the spark. He understood that as a child, as a baby. He
Mhm.
understood what that meant, and it went all throughout it to the point to where, to get to this point, to have this freedom, to give this freedom up for everybody, that I have to change the direction of this Titan to go eat my own mother. Yeah, it's just like he's literally trapped in this cycle, and there's not anything he can even do about it. And but it is also his beliefs and his thoughts too. That's the other rough part about it. Like, he is also angry at the world. It was when Zeke was inside his mind, and like he caused Gresha to attack the family. Like, that wasn't a well, I guess I have to do this moment. He he wanted that to happen. He wanted he wanted this to continue on. He knew that this had to happen, and he was angry that it existed because he connected with Ymir, the original Ymir, who was angry at the world for what had happened. But there's even that little bit of complexity that she loved King Fritz, the guy who enslaved her, and like it's just like there's that, like, people are complicated. They're more than one emotion. It's that sort of thought process. But yeah, there was no going back for him. He was destined to do what he was going to do from day one. He manipulated his father from the future to put him on this path. He manipulated Titans to create the child that he is. And from day one, they even, it's so beautifully done because they even set it up very early on when he kills the people that kidnapped Mikasa as children, as a kid. He just like, oh, guess what? You're dead. Like, he's like this little psychopath. Like,
clear signs he's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, he's a little psycho. Like, this is nuts, because you tried to hurt something that I'm trying to protect. He was always that, and I think that's really perfect because they kind of take this like, this heroic stance of that, and then they take it to this other extreme to where he's like, oh, but he does do what he said he was going to do. He destroyed all the Titans. He succeeded. So,
and they fucked around and they found out, is what Brendan said, ladies and gentlemen.
The fucking amoeba found out.
Yeah.
Dude, that was such a weird. Did it look that weird in the manga?
Yeah, weirder. Yeah. I'd say. Yeah, weirder. I'd say. It's like it's pure white in the manga. It's really weird. Like, there's like no shading on it at all. It's like creepy and it's really weird.
It's like a slimy centipede.
Yeah, parasitical thing that attaches to your neck. Ugh.
It just, I mean, it's fitting, but it just made like everything on the back of my neck crawl seeing it. Just the way it moved, it was just like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
But I had to watch it with one eye open because I wanted to see what was going on. You know what I mean? So now I know I asked you guys, your favorite moments in this episode, but I would like to know, how many times do you guys rewatch this one? Ricky, how many times do you rewatch this one?
I rewatched the finale twice.
Twice.
But then I read the manga like several times over.
Okay. And then Brandon, how many times have you watched it?
I watched this one twice as well. Yeah, I watched it twice over. I watched it after I did my episode, see if there was anything I missed because I'm a sadist. And I also, but I reread the last issue of the manga like 1,000 times just to make sure I understood everything that was there, because I kept reading that everyone hated it and I just didn't understand. Like, I don't know, it was very odd. It was very bizarre to me. So,
well, the reason I asked that, and I mean, it might be somewhat of a rehashing, but I think favorite scene is completely different than what am I going to ask you. But was there anything that you guys rewound to that you wanted to rewatch and rewatch and rewatch? Might not have been your favorite scene. It might have been something. Maybe I'm just trying to connect some dots. Maybe I missed something before. But was there anything that you guys wanted to revisit a couple more times?
Not so much in the finale, but it was always like through seasons 1 and 2 that I went back and rewatched stuff, because there was like, before you find out about like Marley and stuff, like there's details of major foreshadowing from the very beginning. And that's what I enjoyed about this show, was like you can go back to season 1, catch all these little like Easter eggs or details that you missed out the first or even second watch. And so that's what I do. I go back and do that. But the finale, no, I didn't really go back to catch anything that I missed or any Easter eggs, but I did, like, if anything, like just the Levi fight scenes, man, like just catching that stuff frame by frame when he's flying around fighting the other Jaw Titans. Dude's a freaking monster.
Yeah.
Yes. What about you, Brandon? Was there anything that you wanted to go back and revisit a couple times, scenes, moments?
Yeah, I rewatched Levi killing Zeke about 4 times. It was pretty fun. So I was pretty down with it.
Without his head, with his head, without his head, with his head.
The look of, this motherfucker from Levi looking just like, he just popped his head out and said hi to me. This motherfucker is dead. Like, it's so good. I loved it. So, and like even Zeke knew he was dead at that point. I've rewatched the conversation between Aaron and Armin a few times. That's a really good one.
So heavy. It's so heavy.
It's so good. That's I love good brother stuff, man. Like, brother, good brothers in arms type of thing is great. One thing I kept pausing it on Rico's reintroduction into the story because Rico, she was one of my favorite characters from season 1, and she disappeared, and we don't get to see her until she's there cheering with the Jaegerists at the end, and I'm like, hey, Rico, she's
Was she at
awesome.
the end of the manga too? I don't recall.
Yeah, she's like just a tiny at the bottom of the panel of the Jaegerist doing the thing,
Okay.
doing the chant. And she's like right there, like, hey, Rico, sweet. It's like
Yeah.
I loved Rico, and they had nothing for her to do when they took the walls down. It was just like, oh man,
It's just funny because Isayama forgot about her. Like he completely forgot about Rico.
She was so awesome in that first in the Taking Back Shigan Shina arc. It was so good. She was great. She was like the best character. Ah man, just had nothing for her to do. So weird.
So is that a sequel prequel that you want to see? Is her just what happened in between?
Yeah, the Adventures of Rico. What's she been doing? It's like the Garrison needs some more stuff. The Garrison doesn't get any love, man. It's all scouts, and military police are all villains. They're all a-holes. So it's like I want to see more of the Garrison. You got Pixis. Pixis had a lot, but like you don't even see Rico like ever. Like it's like so like when everybody turns into a Titan. Did she turn into a Titan? I don't know. Like we don't even see her. But finally she gets shown at the very end. So it's like okay, Rico survived all that, I guess. So sweet. Like
she
became a Jaegerist.
She was the one on the grassy knoll. Brandon,
yeah,
I think we just uncovered.
She could have been the one that planted the bomb. I don't know. She could have been one of them. Who knows? So
we might be onto something, Brandon.
We might. Hey guys, it's your resident cartoon junkie Brandon Jones here, asking you to have a listen to my Animation Destination podcast. It's an animation celebration podcast, and it's full of all sorts of stuff about anime and cartoons and voice acting and all that sort of thing, and just a really all-around celebration of anything animated. So come on by and check it out. We've got fan episodes of your favorite animes to your most obscure cartoons on Netflix that no one's ever heard of, and just really love talking about it. You can subscribe to us on Spotify and iTunes and anywhere else you can get your podcasts from. So stop on by, subscribe, and stay tuned for the Animation Destination podcast.
If you're into anime, manga, comic books, movie reviews, or just pop culture, Spoiler Force Podcast is the place for you. Not only do I talk about nerdy topics, I have conversations with a variety of guests, such as musicians, Comic-Con artists, cosplayers, other podcasters, and people from all over the world. Join me as I go on this journey to find ways to help others express themselves with their creativity.